Season 10 kicks off with a rusty old Russian satellite in Earth's orbit, a visual which immediately piqued my interest. Back down on Earth, everyone is doing these medieval style training drills for killing walkers, which looks to be overcomplicating a task that most people have become professionals at. When the kids return from the beach to show off their shell collections, Judith sees that they found a Whisperer mask, putting the community on yellow alert. They search the area, keeping within the perimeter line dictated by the Whisperers. But for a while now, no Whisperers have been seen guarding the perimeter. Aaron is at the point where he's fed up of these borders. He crosses into their territory to take out a walker.
Well, that was stupid. We agreed not to cross their borders or to start anything without a reason.
It makes me wonder how I would behave in this situation. Would you keep on your side of the fence if you felt no one was guarding the other side? And as Aaron rightly points out, no one saw the Whisperers migrating out or migrating back. So for all they know, the Whisperers could have died in the storm. There's a couple of character changes to cover off, so let's do that real quick. Rosita and Sadiq had their baby, and we see Eugene going overboard, making sure that the baby's progress is tracked. He also tries to take a peek at Rosita's boob while she's breastfeeding. I don't even know what to say about that. Carol is now a sea dog, and that's not me being mean, there's a chapter about her called Sea Dog. And weirdly, when she comes back from a long sea voyage, she shares a very awkward greeting from Ezekiel.
Hey.
Hey.
So I'm guessing they're no longer a couple.
Aww.
And Negan is now allowed out of his cell during work hours so he can farm the crops.
Negan, get back to work, sir.
With no sign of the Whisperers anywhere, the community start to relax, but then they go straight back to yellow alert when the Russian satellite goes boom in the air. The satellite crashes in the Whisperers' territory, but the community decide to cross the line because this fire could devastate the land for everyone if not controlled, and they spend a good amount of time trying to fight the fire. I can't lie, I did get a bit bored during this part, so let's just skip to when the fire's put out. I'm just eager to learn what this satellite's all about, and Eugene echoes my anticipation.
We should excavate and transport this satellite to our vehicles. I believe there may be invaluable technological implications for our communities.
Carol and Daryl spend some time together, talking about different places they could run off to, like New Mexico, wondering if that part of the world has the same problems they have here. While Carol looks out over the place where Alpha used to keep the herd, she spots Alpha walking out into the clearing. This episode is entirely dedicated to Alpha, Beta and Lydia's past, and I love it. In the early days, we see Alpha before she was called Alpha, running with Lydia to escape some walkers, and I like how we can already see her mocking their mouth movements to blend in. They take shelter in this building, which is currently occupied by Beta, but he's not called Beta yet. Initially, he's unfriendly towards Alpha, insisting that she keeps to her quarters and is gone by the morning, but she ends up staying for longer, and Beta starts to appreciate her survival skills and calmness in the face of death. She also helps Beta in letting go of his best friend, who turned Walker a while back. And so now he wears his face skin and also a smiley t-shirt to carry on his honour or something. They establish a rule between each other to not give each other names, so they simply refer to each other by A and B, which immediately establishes a hierarchy. Now, looking at a giant like this that could easily snap Alpha like a twig, you'd think that he would refuse the lower rank. But this is testament to the idea that just because you're the strongest physically speaking, you might still yearn to follow someone who is mentally stronger. Alpha has shown him the way forward, and from here he silently agrees to be her strongman Beta. Alpha is appearing to be sympathetic towards the mother who gave up her baby, but then the mother's emotions get the best of her and she almost causes a catastrophe to the pack when she sacrifices herself and tries to bring Alpha down with her.
See how that meat came right straight off the bone?
Comes right off the bone.
Back at the camp, Beta catches Alpha crying over Lydia. She told the Whisperers that she killed Lydia, but this outburst reveals the truth to her second-in-command.
She's my daughter. She's my baby. I could not get her.
As they have such a history of trust with each other, Beta agrees to keep this information to himself, remembering that she helped him when he was feeling vulnerable, and so the honourable thing to do here is return the favour. The sister of the aggrieved mother is the one who saved Alpha's life, and for this sacrifice she gets promoted to the status of Gamma. The Whisperers see smoke rising from their territory, so they know the group have trespassed, and we see from Alpha's perspective now walking out of the clearing and looking up at Carol. Alexandria is pushing back waves of walkers, and at first they believe it to be the actions of the Whisperers, but then Gamma comes along and says no, it's not us, but you guys are going to have to come to the border to answer for your trespassing. When they arrive, Michonne tries hoodwinking them by saying that they only crossed once in order to put out the fire for their mutual benefit, but Alpha calls bullshit as she knows they crossed the border 3 times, one of the times being during the storm. I failed to see how they kept watch during the storm, considering that you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you, but whatever.
We are always watching.
Alpha says their punishment is that they have to sacrifice more land to the Whisperers, which Carol tries to contest with a gunshot, but Michonne stops her and they agree to the proposal. Aaron is forced to take Negan out with him on their mission to clear out walkers. I say forced because Aaron is still riding the Negan hate train. They end up in a spiteful back and forth about Aaron losing Eric, and Negan losing the human version of Lucille, and this comment almost pushes Negan over the edge.
You want to say something? Yeah. Behind you.
Aaron is temporarily blinded by the hogweed that covered the walker, and so now he can't see where Negan ran off to. He stumbles into this house where Negan sits in the dark, silently observing his fumbling around as he continues the search. Aaron is about to be eaten, but then Negan steps in to save him, showing once again that he is a changed person, but talking about his wife in a less than complimentary manner will not be tolerated. He will shut that shit down. Ever since Henry died, Carol's been losing sleep, and it's gotten to the point where she's hallucinating his ghost.
Mom.
Daryl and some others become aware of her hallucinations, so when she reports that she saw the Whisperers, Michonne is inclined to believe that she actually didn't. But actually, she did see the Whisperers, and we see them at the end of the episode turning into a walker. I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this season so far. Despite the rocky first episode, the writing seems a lot more interesting, and I feel invested in some of these characters again. Like Sadiq, for example. He's struggling to perform his doctor duties with his PTSD that he's been suffering with ever since the Whisperers took out his friends. You can sense the guilt he feels in surviving. The key word for this episode is struggle. The song they play at the start and at the end of the episode perfectly captures the mood of some of the characters' struggle. The song is not my particular cup of tea, but it's a quality song that you might like. The Hilltop are forced into action when a tree crushes a wall, and the Season 9 new guys struggle to keep the walkers from flooding in.
We need help! Now is no time. Hey! We stay out here, we die. Everybody! Go!
Once the battle is over, Magna lashes out at Yumiko for being too controlling, and it's here that we learn that Yumiko was her lawyer in the past life. So for the first time I find myself being interested in their story. Lydia is struggling to fit in with the community, with some people still giving her shit for her connection with the Whisperers.
Right. No, she kicked your ass out. Now you're just a freak.
Get the hell out of here.
As a fellow outsider, she confides in Negan for advice, and he starts feeling a protective duty towards her. This escalates to the key event of this episode, where he saves Lydia from the town bullies, but then he realises that oops, he killed one of them. Daryl then struggles to keep the peace, knowing that fairness will be overshadowed by emotions, as the pitchfork-wielding crowds declare this accident as a murder. Luckily, Gabriel still holds his position as head counsellor, and says that the council shall sleep on their vote before they decide to kill Negan for this alleged crime. But when the morning arrives, he's gone. Lydia tries taking the blame so that she can be locked away for her safety, an idea of which Daryl agrees to. We also get this moment where Ezekiel is standing on the edge considering taking himself out, but Michonne is there to offer the emotional support that he's needed for so long. He kisses her and then quickly apologises, suggesting it to be an act of stupidity. But I don't know, I think they'd be good for each other right now.
I was a mess. That was not the top of my game, just so you know.
Well, I haven't kissed anyone over 4 feet in the last 6 years, so...
Did Morgan come up with this episode title? It is what it always is. That's my best attempt at a Morgan voice. Speaking of Morgan, I neglected to mention that he left the show at the end of season 8. Yeah, I know, I don't miss him either.
Thanks, bye.
The episode opens with Kelly out in the woods hunting a boar, and she's got some pains in her ears from tinnitus or something. And then she goes all dizzy when a walker's about to chomp down on her. Out in the woods, Negan gets caught up by one of the Alexandrites, but it turns out he's an ex-savior who still secretly supports Negan, even gifting him his old jacket back to try and bring the old Negan back. Negan plays along out of politeness, with maybe a touch of sincerity, a small part of him longing to be respected again. Later, they hear screams from inside a bus, and Negan rushes in to save the day. But then the saviour boy says we should go out and find where their camp is, so we can raid it and take it over like the good old days. Negan, not wanting his old lifestyle back, orders the kid to go back home, and he spends some time getting to know the young lad and his mother.
I told Brandon to get lost. Not the best co-pilot if you catch my drift. You don't catch my drift at all, do you? You've never been on a plane.
When he returns with some firewood, he sees that the saviour boy has also returned and killed his new friends. This sends Negan into a rage.
I passed, right? I am Negan!
Placing him at the point of no return now, because that makes 2 Alexandrites he's killed. He was perfectly justified in both cases, but the pitchfork-wielding mob won't care about that detail. Ezekiel goes to the doctor about a lump in his neck, which due to his family history is no doubt thyroid cancer, so maybe the end is near for him. Daryl and Kelly's friends find her in the woods, somehow still alive. Yeah, this is The Walking Dead, I've given up asking questions. It's revealed here that Magna stole the food that went missing from the hilltop, and she did this because apparently she still doesn't trust them. Oh god, I want to question it so bad. This episode had some mid parts, but overall still enjoyable. And the ending is very interesting, where Negan goes out in search of the Whisperers, for reasons we're soon to find out. Carol and Daryl head off to try and take the Whisperers on by themselves. An expected move on their part, but it did make for some interesting conversation, where Daryl finally talks about his romantic interests. How these two haven't boinked yet is beyond me. Carol asks if he and Connie are an item, but he says what's the point? Which, considering how fleeting relationships are in this world, that is a pretty good point he's making. But I've got to imagine he's got a hell of a mojo backup, if you catch my drift. I can't imagine it's easy finding the privacy to perform the devil's handshake, so with all of this pent up passion, why hasn't he tried it with anyone? It turns out Carol wasn't being straight with Daryl when she made plans to come here, as her goal was to capture a Whisperer to hold them prisoner. Negan applies to join the Whisperers, and immediately Beta can't stand him. He's loud, he's egotistical, he basically embodies the exact opposite of the word whisper.
He cannot be trusted. Dispose of him.
Alpha ignores Beta's concerns and commands him to put Negan through the trials, and we get a montage of Negan digging a huge cooking pit, and he's the one who has to slaughter the pig for the feast. This montage is accompanied by an upbeat tune, which matches Negan's clowning around attitude.
Is this like a Beta with benefit situation? You slide her little Omega on the side.
Respect the Alpha.
Beta says Negan's still not worthy to eat with them, but one of the Whisperers gives him food in appreciation for his efforts. So clearly, Beta is losing his influence on the group, with the group no doubt picking up on his differences with Alpha. Beta kills the rebellious Whisperer, and leaves Negan to fend off a crowd of walkers. But he returns triumphantly, and formally presents himself to Alpha.
We haven't formally met, but I sure as hell know who you are. I'm all in. Whatever you want, whatever I got, it's yours.
There's quite a nice moment where Eugene makes contact with a mysterious woman on the radio, and they share stories about their similar experiences in the before times.
The most vivid memory of an ice cream shop with the most marvelous batch of black raspberry ice cream.
The inside scoop. I went there all the time.
In the doctor's office, there's another flu outbreak to deal with, and for some reason they decide to keep Rosita's baby in the same room as the sick people. Yeah, maybe don't do that. Sadiq goes to fix up the captured Whisperer, but his PTSD is going into overdrive being face to face with the enemy. Also facing the enemy and hoping to build bridges is Aaron, but he does recognise that she's likely out here to get intel on Alexandria, and this is why he's keeping the conversation focused on personal stuff. She eventually walks away, fearing that she might grow attached to him as a friend, which will mean that she fails her mission given by Alpha. Back to the prisoner, Carol tries to win him over with a delicious jam sandwich.
What's it gonna be? Honey or jam? Strawberry or apple?
Hilariously, he chews it up and spits it back in her face. Since he wasn't a fan of that jam, Carol sees if he likes a thumb jammed right into his fresh wound. And since he wasn't a fan of that particular sandwich, she gives him a knuckle sandwich, in the hopes that that will persuade him to talk.
I would never betray Alpha. She rescued me. She protects me.
Later on, before they can get any decent info out of him, he gets super sick and eventually dies. And it turns out that Dr. Dante gave him the wrong herbs when Sadiq packed the medical bag incorrectly. Sadiq can't take this trauma anymore and jumps into the town reservoir to clear his mind.
Look.
After a long talk with Rosita, he comes to the realisation that people might be getting sick from the water supply. A suspicion confirmed when he inspects the water supply and sees that someone switched the not drinkable to drinkable. Later that night, Dr. Dante pays him a visit, and when Dr. Dante starts doing his weird mouth-clicking noises, he has a flashback to a Whisperer doing the same noise. When Sadiq realises who Dr. Dante is, the two of them scuffle, and we get this unexpected death of Sadiq. He was a cool character, but I can't say I'm that torn up about it. Also in this episode, Lydia gets tired of being used by both sides of the conflict and decides to run away to be on her own. We get to see how Dr. Dante tricked his way into becoming a doctor in Alexandria, before tampering with the water supply and then spreading propaganda messages about the Whisperers. All good stuff, I liked it. He tries to smooth talk Rosita to prevent her from checking in on Sadiq, but she's not budging, so he tries a more aggressive approach. When zombie Sadiq approached the baby, I bet you were so scared. But I wasn't scared because my massive brain remembered when I said earlier about AMC having no balls. The council weigh up their options on what to do with Dante, but Gabriel does what they should have done a long time ago by giving him a good old-fashioned prison shanking. At this point, why even wear your collar anymore? After committing your first murder as a man of the cloth, wearing this Roman collar is just lying to yourself. While creaming his pants over finding some sheet music in this library, Luke gets attacked by a couple of walkers but is then saved by this mystery man, who doesn't stick around to be thanked for his good deed. They catch him sneaking around Oceanside trying to find a boat, and frustratingly, it's one of those characters that refuses to answer any questions just so they can pad out the runtime. The only information we get by the end of the episode is that this man's name is Virgil, and he's trying to get back home with some supplies. While out looking for the Whisperers, Carol spots Alpha on the other side of a clearing. Wait, we've said this before, haven't we? So naturally, Carol bolts off like a dog chasing a squirrel, and she winds up leading the group into this cave where a bunch of walkers are. This is the elusive walker herd that Alpha's been gathering for an upcoming battle. Jerry spots Alpha looking down at them, and Carol gets steaming mad. This is supposed to be taken seriously, but I just can't. I feel like her friends should have been holding her back as a way to calm her down. Would have given us reason to believe that she really is at her mental limit, rather than just screaming like a toddler in a supermarket when mummy won't buy her favourite cereal. They manage to jump across to the other side of the cave, and Daryl uses a lit match to find where the wind is escaping from. This is probably a basic survival trick, but I enjoyed seeing it because I learned something. I haven't spoken much about Gamma lately. Her friendliness with Aaron is about to bite her on the arse, because Alpha suspects that someone is passing information to Alexandria, and for some reason she isn't immediately suspicious of the one person that she knows is speaking with Aaron. At least Negan is able to spot the obvious. He pays her a visit while she's peeing in the village poo pit, and gives her the advice to look into Gamma's activities. Alpha says don't cause a conspiracy and keep this suspicion to yourself, and then she pushes him into the puddles of pee and poo. Later that night, Gamma doesn't return to camp, so yeah, no kidding, she was the spy the whole time. Alpha wants to give Negan a reward for his contribution, so she takes him to the woods and orders him to strip down, so that he can be rewarded with Snoo Snoo. And they make sweet Snoo Snoo while she's still wearing the rotting flesh skin mask. Oh no.
Does my true skin disturb you?
Not at all. Weirdly the opposite.
I can't be too shocked that he accepted her sexual advances, because A, let's not forget he's still trying to get on her good side, for reasons that I believe to be obvious, and B, he's been locked up for a very long stretch, and that jail cell didn't provide much beating off privacy, so I can only imagine the reservoir of built up Negan semen he's got swimming around in his loins. He's gonna pop off like Mentos in Coke.
Hot diggity dog!
Back to a less disgusting part, Cave Gang are still working their way out, and they come to this tunnel where Jerry gets stuck due to his plumpness. And we get this kind of tense moment where a walker is biting at his feet. Yeah, he absolutely should have died here. This scene was the perfect setup for a tragedy. It's a dark cave, we've got lots of walkers, they're traversing through tight spaces, and here we have a character that is generally well liked by the audience. But no, of course, everyone lives. Even when the cave collapses later, I knew that Magna and Connie were going to turn out to be alive in a later episode. If Jerry died here, it would have been even more fuel to the revenge fire against the Whisperers. But I guess I signed up to not have a good time with some episodes. Overcome with guilt over what happened with her sister, Gamma defects to the good side in hopes of seeing her nephew again. They allow her in, but Rosita demands that she's treated as a prisoner.
The cell.
Inside the prison cell, Gabriel says that with all his years of taking confession, he knows when someone is holding back the complete truth, and that she's hiding what really happened with her sister.
Ask God if I'm lying.
I've spoken to God. He told me to hang you.
Well, that doesn't seem like a thing God would say. I thought he was supposed to be nice. She eventually confesses, and so now they trust her enough to tell them where the Walker Cave is located. It may be a bit too late for that, however, as Alpha has started moving the walkers out. Daryl follows them to a nearby river, and then he pulls a surprise attack on Alpha. It doesn't go very well for Daryl, being partially blinded by blood in his eyes and having a knife jammed in his thigh. And yet somehow we cut from this to this. I'm not exactly sure how he was able to outrun Alpha and also the walkers that were right behind him. And on top of that, he was able to gain enough distance to hide in this gas station. The following scene of Alpha drawing in the walkers to attack Daryl is brutal, and you really feel like this could be the end for him. Oh yeah, the Daryl spin-off show exists. Never mind then. While this is going down, most of the Alexandrites have dispersed out on their rescue mission, which is great timing as Beta has snuck into their town to cause drama, and I really enjoyed this part.
I'm telling you, man, one-on-one, the Whisperers are a joke.
After clearing out another house, he waits until they come back as walkers, which creates the perfect distraction for him to go and find where Gamma's being held. He commands her to step forward so that he can bring her to Alpha, although I don't see why he couldn't just go in and grab her. She's literally 2 steps away. Laura makes an unexpected appearance and holds him against the wall, and then Beta just straight up kills her, very unceremoniously. Yep, that's it, Laura's dead. Sure feels like they were just trying to write her out of the story in the easiest way possible. Beta then searches Judith's house, where Judith shoots him down. This certainly won't be another unceremonious death scene, so you'd be silly to think he's actually dead. He almost kills Rosita, but Gamma stops him by saying that she will take herself out if he proceeds, which would deny Alpha of her wishes. Beta takes her back, but then he dips out when the Alexandrites attack.
I didn't betray you. I drew him out here because he was gonna...
Alpha and Daryl are both bleeding out, and then Lydia appears in what I thought was a dream. But when Alpha wakes up, she sees that Daryl is gone, and Lydia left her this message. While Beta is collecting sacks of tree sap, Alpha permits Negan to apply her lashings, which is supposed to build strength, or something like that. The Whisperers are preparing for war, and I find it interesting that during their march, we see that Negan is walking alongside Alpha, while Beta, like the Beta he is having to wait further back. He might as well be watching them from inside a wardrobe. Daryl and Lydia make it back to the hilltop to warn that the Whisperers are coming, and this warning lands the town in a debate. Do they stay and fight and most likely die, or do they run and find a new place to call home? Strangely, no one suggests the idea of taking refuge in Alexandria, so that way they could all fight together. That would have been the obvious choice, right? Normally, Maggie would be making these decisions for the hilltop, and it was here that I became aware that I haven't seen Maggie since mid-season 9. And as it turns out, she left the show over a pay dispute, and also because she was starring in a different show. But hilariously, she's going to come crawling back in the finale of this season, because the other show she was in got cancelled. Anyway, Alpha blocks all of the roads, meaning they have to stay and fight. My kid watches a show called Alpha Blocks. That's funny. Nighttime arrives, and with it, the Whisperers and their horde. The hilltop are holding the defense line, but not for too long, because they start getting pelted with the sacks of tree sap, and they quickly realise this sticky substance makes for a very cruel death when ignited. They get pushed back, but the secure walls of the hilltop are compromised by the fire. On a more positive note, Eugene is all giddy because his radio girlfriend Stephanie says that she's willing to meet him, but she warns that her people are very cautious, so this will not be an easy meeting to arrange. Rosita unintentionally scares her away when she finds the radio room and starts talking to her, but then she makes up for it by encouraging Eugene to not give up and continue on his quest to find his true love. The hilltop burns as the residents fight back with all they have. There's no notable tragedies in this conflict, and we also see Magna strolling back in among the walkers. So, yay, she's alive? The battle's over, but the Whisperers don't celebrate it as a victory, because Alpha still doesn't have Lydia back.
She's not amongst the dead. They will not stop until I bring her home.
Negan is instructed to gather more walkers, and we get this funny scene where his lack of experience makes it so that he struggles getting just one walker to follow him.
Screw this.
Is it just me, or does this walker look like he's vibing out here? Negan spots Aaron fleeing the war zone and chases him down to explain what's going on. But Aaron, for good reason, isn't exactly trusting of him, so Negan isn't given a chance to explain before the walkers arrive.
Aaron, I am not.
Enough of your bullshit!
Then he finds Lydia, which is perfect because she's the key to ending this mission. Beta tracks down Gamma and takes her out, so that when she turns, she can be useful to the Whisperers again by being a guardian. But that's not going to happen because she gets taken down by Alden's arrow. Was he even trying to aim for Beta? What a poor shot, my guy. Earl managed to get the kids to a safe point, but he got bit in the process. So he sets up a spike to end himself before he turns. A heroic last act for an average character. The actor was fine, it's just I didn't really care about his character. Negan leads Alpha to the cabin where he tied up Lydia, but when she opens the door she realises it was a dirty trick. Now to me, it was obvious from the start that this was Negan's plan all along, but still, this was a very satisfying twist to watch. I like how he kisses her as he lays her down to die. It shows that a small part of him still respects and admires her. The twist that I didn't see coming was that the person he made a deal with was Carol, the details of which I'm sure we're soon to find out. R.I.P. Alpha. You were a fantastic villain, played by a fantastic actor, and you will be sorely missed from this story. Michonne has a dream about the time when she rescued Andrea, but in this dream she didn't rescue her and she got tore up by walkers. This opening has no real importance, but I thought I'd show it for all of you Andrea haters out there. Virgil takes Michonne back to his island, but it's soon revealed that the family he's bringing supplies back for is dead, and the real reason he brought her over is to help him kill them. Still suspicious of this guy, she snoops around at night and finds a weird room, which appears to be some sort of holding cell, and Virgil emerges from the shadows to lock her in.
Why couldn't you just wait until morning?
Michonne hears people in the next room, and they reveal themselves to also be prisoners that Virgil locked away when he lost his mind, coinciding with the death of his family. Virgil laced Michonne's food with drugs, and she spends a good chunk of time having hallucinations, which explains the strange Andrea dream. She eventually gets the better of him, and then she frees the other prisoners so they can try and escape the island. Michonne puts Virgil in a cell and demands to know where his supplies are being kept, and when she inspects the inventory, she finds Rick's boots.
Where the hell did you get these?
He takes her to a boat where it becomes clear that Rick was staying here for a while, and Virgil persists in saying that he doesn't know anything about Rick. This is just a random boat that he scavenged from. Virgil's other prisoners allow him to live, and he joins them on their journey as they leave the island. Michonne goes back to the boat to hunt for clues on Rick's whereabouts, and when she speaks to Judith on the radio, Judith convinces her to go look for Rick, as they have the community to look after her and RJ. Remember him? He's barely a character in this story. I don't really know why they bothered. We get to see how Carol set up the deal with Negan to assassinate Alpha, and in doing this, he can make up for the accidental killing of the bully woman. Cutting back to the present when the job is done, Negan asks her to hold up her end of the deal by telling Alexandria about his good deed, but she's upset with him for taking so long to get the job done, and with all that's happened since, she needs time to process and to be on her own. She's not going to go back with the good news until she's ready. Beta finds Alpha's head on the spike, and his subordinate suggests that he's the new Alpha now. But Beta is a loyal man beyond sanity, and says that the head of Alpha is still Alpha, and she speaks to us now in a new form.
Just listen. What is she saying? Jesus.
Daryl jumps at Negan and demands to know where Alpha is, and he has a hard time believing him when he says he killed her. When he goes to show Daryl her decapitated head, it's missing from the spike.
Oh, come on, man.
Beta's detractors turn up to announce Negan as the new Alpha for being the one who killed the previous Alpha. Negan plays along, but only to trick the Whisperers.
You should probably shoot me. Don't threaten me with a good time.
This next part with Beta is absolutely amazing. With Alpha's head in a burlap sack, he hears her wisdom to go into this old saloon type place, where Beta finds a poster from the time that he used to be a country musician. What? I am legit blown away by this. This is such a cool piece of exposition to his backstory. He then gathers a new Walker herd by playing his record.
And I would surely run, kill so many in your name, girl, that I've never seen.
This moment is clearly a way for him to mourn his old life and the loss of his alpha. He finally puts her to rest, but carries on her spirit by replacing his old mask with her face skin. So incredibly disturbing and awesome at the same time. Beta truly is the best character. Eugene informs everyone of the Stephanie situation, and so a small group go with him on a journey to the rendezvous point, and then they bump into this zany character.
Oh my god, hi!
In the wise words of Tallahassee from Zombieland,
I can tell already you are gonna get on my nerves.
this Furby with a gun is called Princess, and right off the bat you can tell something is off with her.
Now that I've met actual live people again. Hold on. You guys are real, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about this some more later. Princess immediately causes a problem by scaring off the horses when she takes out some walkers. To apologise, she offers to replace their transportation so they can continue their mission. She takes them through this supposed shortcut, but it's an area completely covered with landmines.
I walk this all the time. It's no big deal. I got the route right up here.
So you can get us out?
Of course, as soon as I figure out where we left off.
I volunteer to step on a landmine right now if it means we get to end this scene. Because she's a bit of a special case, she ends up walking them round in circles, and this does not sit well with Yumiko.
Yumiko!
You better tell us what you're up to, and maybe I'll leave you here alive.
Oh, yes, Yumiko. I like you now.
I might have maybe sort of missed the turn onto Fleetwood earlier, but only because I was having too much fun. Like a billion times we could take the scenic route and never thought it was going to be all I wanted was to show you the garage and then you realize, Princess, we could take the scenic route.
In the end, Princess does get them some form of transportation, which they figure is better than walking. And to say thanks, Yumiko offers her to join them so she doesn't have to be alone anymore. Oh no, Yumiko. I don't like you again. Beta's herd finds Alexandria abandoned, but not completely abandoned, as Alden and Aaron, god damn it, that's hard for me to say, are taking note of Beta's plans while hidden in the windmill. Beta's mentality is in a really interesting place. He thinks he can hear Alpha's wisdom while he wears her skin, and I suppose the reality of this is that he's suffering from psychosis.
They have nothing. They flee. They hide.
This voice in his head happens to be quite helpful though, because it convinces him that going to Oceanside is exactly what their enemy would be expecting them to do, and a better plan is to head to another spot where they could be hiding. Beta's herd, let's call them the Horde, close in on the tower. Yeah, they're pretty screwed, right? Gabriel tries convincing the kids that they have many friends who will fight for them, even if they're off doing something completely unrelated to the current problem, like Eugene's quest to find his true love. Out in the woods, Aaron and Alden bump into this unique looking fellow. Yeah, he's gonna look great on the thumbnail, even if he ends up being a nothing character. Some of the group go on a mission to set up Luke's speaker so they can draw the Horde away from the tower. And weirdly, they don't even bother covering their faces in walker blood. I swear this show gives less of a shit each time they do this trick. Why even bother wearing the hoods? Clearly all you need to do is walk out with the tiniest bit of walker blood on your clothes and you're completely undetectable now. On a more positive note, I do like how the archers on top of the tower take out the Whisperers to assist the gang below, and then Beta tightens the herd to make it more difficult for the archers to spot them in the crowd. They lead a fairly successful parade, with a good chunk of the Horde now far away, but the Whisperers take down the cart and force the group to form a new plan, which is to sneak back into the Horde and take out the Whisperers. And then we get to Beta, the final boss. Negan distracts him, allowing Daryl to land a double eyeball stab. And so here we have the death scene of Beta. He embraces death, and you get the sense that he finally feels free.
We are free. The embrace of death. Now is the end of the world.
An amazing character, right until the bittersweet end. Rest easy, my king. Lydia assists in leading the horde over a cliff, which too feels symbolic of her being free from her Whisperer past. The episode ends with Eugene's gang at the train depot, hoping to finally meet his radio lady, but instead they get held up by these Power Ranger looking guys. This moment, unfortunately, marks the start of when this show becomes mostly unbearable for me, so brace yourselves, and I will try to make it less painful for you than it was for me. Maggie's back in the story now, and she's the one who made friends with that guy in the mask. I won't bother giving him a name unless I have to. They catch Maggie up on the hilltop being lost, and Negan helping them to kill Alpha, which earned his freedom back. She takes them back to her new village, but oh dear, it's been burned down as well. And Maggie suspects this to be the work of a new group of antagonists called the Reapers. One of the Reapers attacks them in the woods, and when he gets cornered, he says nothing apart from
"Boat walk, Jim."
And then he explodes himself with a grenade.
Get down!
I would have thought Maggie would have needed to step a little further away than that. She moved only a couple of footsteps and just got a bit dusty from the explosion. Well, anyway, she finds Herschel because he went missing for a second, and then she arrives back in Alexandria. This episode was pure filler, but it wasn't the worst episode ever. Basically, Daryl runs away from home to go live in the wilderness by himself, but then he meets this woman living in a cabin, and I've got a sneaky suspicion that she'll be back in the story later.
I was trying to be nice.
I don't need you to be nice. I don't need you to be anything. I want to be left the hell alone.
This is the first and only love interest that Daryl gets in the whole show, and it only lasts for this one episode, which kind of sucks because it would have been cool to see Daryl fighting for more than just his friends and the good of the people. I really enjoyed the colour grading of these flashback moments. Everything is so vibrant and warm looking. It was nice to give the eyeballs a change of visual stimulus. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about, so let's move on. Out on a supply run, Aaron is desperate to go home and see his daughter, but Gabe urges them to keep trying different spots. They come across this mini-mart, which is like, why would you even bother trying here? After all these years of the post-apocalypse, mini-marts and supermarkets and any place that would obviously have food would be absolutely raided and stripped down by this point. They then come across this warehouse, which wasn't marked on their maps, and so they decide to investigate. Of all things to find, Aaron finds a board trapped in a room.
He just came at me. What? Dinner.
And they pair this rare meat with an expensive bourbon, a classy choice for two classy gentlemen, who continue showing how sophisticated they are by playing a round or two of poker. It was very enjoyable watching these two get wasted and talking honestly with each other.
You need to start preaching again. No, you do. I'm gonna be mad at you if you don't.
The niceness of this moment is cut short, however, when the original owner of the board turns up and he seems like bad news. He holds them both at gunpoint and demands they play a game of Russian roulette, so he can prove that the world is a messed up place, because he was placed in a situation where he had to kill his brother or something. When they inevitably kill him, they discover that his brother is still alive and tied up in the back of the warehouse. They try to set him free, but then this happens.
No, wait!
So yeah, absolutely another filler episode. I honestly don't understand why they've stretched out these last 2 seasons. Only 2 of these additional 6 episodes for season 10 end up feeling like they were worth the time. Let's just get through this. Oh god. This might be the most boring episode of The Walking Dead, but at least it's actually focused on moving the story along, even if it drags its heels doing so. So finally, we get to see what these Power Rangers are all about. They're holding Eugene's gang in these train carts, and after a while, they bring Princess into these processing rooms to ask her questions about who she is and where she came from. Presumably, this is also happening to the rest of the group, but we don't get to see that yet. From here, we're treated to a lengthy mental struggle where Princess is hearing voices and seeing people that aren't really there and such. Maybe if this was happening for a character I cared about, I'd be providing more nuance to this part of the recap. But come on, it's Princess. Do we really care to talk about her? The show is coming to an end. We should be wrapping things up with existing characters, not chucking in wacky, zany new characters. We simply don't have enough time to care about characters like this. The one cool part is where she imagines seeing Ezekiel and some walkers outside the gate, and they're just chilling with each other like bros.
We start dying the day we're born.
That was a funny part, but I'm ready to move on. Oh my god, oh wow. Diverged is the worst rated episode on IMDb, and yeah, deservedly so. Daryl spends an entire episode repairing his bike, while Carol makes soup for the community. God. I wish I was making that up. I swear to God that is the actual plot of this episode. The only mildly entertaining element of Carol's story is that she's trying to catch a rat in the kitchen and it's sending her a little loopy. To try and be fair, I understand that some of season 10 was being shot during COVID, which no doubt meant they had to scale things back a bit, so that we don't have too much interaction between the actors. And of course I can see the positives that people were still able to work during the pandemic. People do got bills to pay after all, but the end product from their work is trash. You served your audience a hot steaming pile of trash, just so that you could keep your staff on the payroll. And while like I say there are positives to that, I'm just left feeling conflicted on how to feel. Okay, this episode is fantastic. This is how you make a filler episode that has a lot of purpose and value for the audience. I will say it doesn't start out as filler, because we see Carol setting Negan up in a cabin, which wasn't what they agreed to in their deal, but the council have decided that he is to be banished from Alexandria.
I know it's not what I promised, but given our less recent history, it's better than you deserve.
In his loneliness and depression, he starts imagining his old self talking to his new self, and he realises that he doesn't have anyone in this world without Lucille.
You are nothing without her.
He digs up Lucille, and this triggers the flashback part of this episode. The timeline is kinda scrambled, so I'm gonna unscramble it. Negan's going through a midlife crisis, being out of work and living like an irresponsible teenager, and his wife Lucille has had enough.
Are you playing with children?
Teenagers, I think, mostly.
She gets even grumpier when he forgot about her scan to check for cancer, and then she's at her grumpiest when it turns out she does have cancer.
Do you have someone to drive you home?
Mr. White?
Yes.
You understood what I've just said to you.
Yes. Lung cancer.
I like this kind of backstory because it shows that Negan hides a lot of insecurities about his past because of how shitty he was to his wife up until the diagnosis. Forward into post-apocalypse times, they're trying their best to keep it together, but Lucille's chemo pouches are running very low, and they have to rely on this noisy generator to keep the bags cool, which naturally attracts walkers to their house. There's a really nice moment where they're cuddling on the bed, and Negan is singing the song "You Are So Beautiful" to her.
You are so beautiful to me.
And this memory is why he repeatedly referred to the baseball bat version of Lucille as beautiful. Out looking for more chemo pouches, Negan gets tied up by some bikers, and he can feel the time ticking away, knowing Lucille needs that treatment very soon. He doesn't make it back in time, and naturally this is a super sad scene. He drinks all night, not leaving her side, unable to fulfill her wishes of not being left alive as a walker. He eventually burns down the house with her inside, while their favourite song plays over the scene. Yeah, I can't lie, I did get choked up by this. It's an excellent episode and a great way to end the season. The episode ends with a symbolic burning of the Lucille bat, where he admits that carrying on her name with a baseball bat was kind of silly. And to leave off, we get this strange tonal shift, where Negan returns to Alexandria and insists on being a part of their community, giving Maggie this FU stare, which I just don't understand. You're supposed to be a changed man. You literally just burned your past. Despite that moment, like I say, this episode was amazing. And here we have it, it's final season time. Alright, here we are, the very last season. The gang are on a mission to collect MRE pouches from a military base, but it goes wrong when a drop of Daryl's blood lands on a walker's face, and it wakes up the whole room of walkers. I've never understood how walkers could be in a dormant state. I thought the whole point was they ride until they die. They don't just rest when they're feeling a bit sleepy. Am I a fool for expecting that the very last season of this show would give us some kind of shocking death scene? Oh, what am I talking about? This is The Walking Dead. Alexandria is completely fucked. They have no crops, and even with that MRE scavenge, they only have enough food to last one more week, which isn't helped by the fact that they have even more mouths to feed now. Mr. Man Mountain here probably needs a dozen eggs a day to keep up that physique. Maggie says they should take back her old settlement where the Reapers live now, a place called Meridian. This place should still have plenty of supplies, and the Reapers are few in numbers. En route, they get rained on pretty hard, so they take shelter in this subway. While this is going on, we see Eugene's gang being interviewed by the Power Ranger people, who belong to a new community called the Commonwealth. And they're asking Eugene's gang questions that can't possibly be useful information.
What did your parents do for a living? Highest level of schooling? Have you ever been vaccinated for measles? How many bowel movements do you have a day? Excuse me?
From the second I met these people, I had a feeling I wasn't going to like the Commonwealth. And well, that feeling only intensifies, for reasons I'll soon be explaining. While in their holding cell, they try and figure out a way past the guards. But this lead guard, the orange Power Ranger, who is always grumpy, looks like the kind of guy you wouldn't try messing with.
You think I was some power-tripping cop? The shoe fits.
Despite relying on Negan's help to navigate the subway, they still talk to him like dirt. And it starts getting to him when they ignore his advice and push him around.
You don't want to go in there?
No, I don't.
Don't give a shit. Which way?
They get boxed in by some walkers and have to climb atop this train, and Maggie is the last one up. Negan looks down on her like, yeah, you're a bitch. And she falls down onto the walkers and does die. She is absolutely 100% dead. Maggie lives. Because everyone loves Maggie. We simply have to keep this moody cow in the show. Even though she hasn't had a decent character evolution since Glenn got turned into Spaghetti Glenn. Look at this bollocks before the titles begin. She survives this. I'm really struggling. Inside the train, everyone is like, yo, where's Maggie at? Negan, of course, lies and says that she was right behind him. And then she pops up from the ground like a whack-a-mole and boofs Negan for almost letting her die. He rightfully defends himself, saying that all he's done lately is help people. And still, this lot threaten him with death on a daily basis. So in that particular moment, no, he didn't feel like being nice. They come across a dilemma where they could save this young man, who's stuck in the next carriage and about to be eaten. But in doing so, they would have to waste their precious ammo supply. Maggie is given the final say in what happens, and she coldly refuses to help him. I like how Maggie ditched out on all her friends for half a season, and then she just gets to come back as a voice of authority. By all rights, Gabriel should be the leader here. Skipping the rest of this subway part because it's meaningless, even if it is kinda cool looking for the zombie kills. On the other side, Maggie says they should restock their supplies at a depot she knows, but on their way they get ambushed by the Reapers. They look intimidating enough. Let's hope the Reapers make this last season interesting. We also see that Eugene and the gang have passed the screening process and are therefore allowed to enter the Commonwealth, meaning Eugene finally gets to meet Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie.
Oh, isn't that sweet? This long-haired dude that was Maggie's friend gets taken out, and so does the Man Mountain. I would be sadder, but this means I have less people to talk about, and I'm just a horrible person apparently. Everyone gets split up, leaving Maggie dazed and confused. It's not made clear where Maggie is heading to, but on the way she takes shelter in this shopping mall, which looks super creepy. It reminds me of Left 4 Dead 2. Maggie loses her torch when she pushes a walker down the staircase, and I like how the place is just as visible without her torch. She runs into Alden, but then a Reaper runs into him. Luckily though, Negan is also here at the exact time he would be needed. And luckier still, they managed to get away with only minor injuries. Where Alexandria is having to basically start over again, they need to wrangle up more horses. And this was quite a nice moment where they calm the horses down and bond with them. Yeah, this isn't very exciting, I know, but it was refreshingly heartwarming in these dire times of The Walking Dead. Let's get back to misery. We go back to when everyone split during the Reaper attack, and we see Daryl brawling with this Reaper, assisted by Dog, who is simply called Dog because that's what his previous owner, the cabin lady, called him. He then runs into another Reaper, and Dog is sitting obediently by her side, which can only mean one thing. It's Caesar Milan, the Dog Whisperer. Or it's the cabin lady. What was her name? Leah. Oh yeah. Daryl convinces her that he wasn't part of the group that she found him with, a move he pulls to protect them from any blackmail/hostage situation. The other Reapers aren't so quick to believe him and water torture him, but he will never crack because he's Daryl Mother Effin Dixon. We then meet our new antagonist, Pope. I really like this guy's acting. He's an unhinged but calculated ex-military guy, the exact type of guy that would be a leader of this group.
We saw God everywhere. He was in the blood and the horror and death.
He sends in Leah to interrogate Daryl once more, but then they both get locked inside this cabin, which is then set alight by the other Reapers. When Daryl gets them both safely outside, it turns out this was all a test orchestrated by Pope.
Forged by fire. Ordained by God. Welcome him.
Pope is the kind of guy that takes honour and brotherhood very seriously, so when he learns that one of the Reapers fled the scene to survive, he tosses them into the fire.
We are the chosen ones. We run into the battle. We run into the fire.
This show might just get good again. In this episode, we're going to learn about the Commonwealth, shown to us using the same video that they played to new citizens who managed to pass the screening process.
This orientation will give you a taste of what we have in store for you. The future starts here.
They claim to have over 50,000 people living in this community, who each have a specific job assigned to them based on their skill sets. And due to their massive population size, they've been able to pool their resources and start a pretty sweet life here. Princess is giddy with excitement of being assigned a new job, but Eugene reminds them all that they came here to get help for Alexandria, not to become residents here. Eugene suddenly feels better about the situation, seeing that aside from his nerdy girlfriend, there's a second pretty nerd wandering about.
Excuse me. That wouldn't happen to be Rocky Road there, would it?
Keep this one in mind because she's going to be back in the story soon. Stephanie says they can use the radio tower to communicate with Alexandria, but they get caught and arrested because communicating with outsiders breaks Commonwealth law. This is probably the first episode where I found myself liking Judith. She isn't just being a kick-ass girl boss, she actually has layers to her character here. The local bully boy taunts her, saying that Michonne probably left her because she doesn't stop talking. And later on, she finds that someone broke Carl's handprint board.
Who did this? Who broke our handprints? Was it you?
No.
Don't lie.
You gonna pull another knife on me? I said I didn't do it. Come on.
She then sits outside emotional at the idea that her memories of her family are fading away, and you can totally sympathise with her feeling abandoned.
Does it get easier?
I'd be lying if I said it did.
Negan and Maggie spend most of the episode arguing about what's right and what's wrong and blah blah blah, and it ends with them meeting Gabriel and the hockey mask guy, who I guess now that we can see his face, he gets a name. It's Elijah. Last thing to mention is that Yumiko finds her brother working as a baker.
Eggs roasted and ready, boss. Should I run it over to...
Hi, Tommy.
Some of this episode is straight up bananas, yo. I'm Skylar White, yo. Connie and Virgil are on the run from some walkers and they take shelter in this house. But this house is no ordinary house, and they're not alone in here. For this episode and this episode only, we encounter a new type of weird person / creature referred to by the Walking Dead wiki as ferals, where a group of people have become so deprived of normality that they've turned into Smeagol's, running on all fours and such. This episode has a lot of high praise on IMDb, from people celebrating how scary this episode is. And I agree with that part for sure. But to me, this episode feels so out of place in the Walking Dead universe. Just consider the context of this episode existing with all the others. It's almost a little too different. This idea of people turning feral from a lack of normality and poor living conditions would make for a great movie, independent of the Walking Dead universe. Connie and Virgil escape the house by letting walkers in, who quickly take care of these Smeagol people. And then we get this nice reunion moment between Connie and Kelly. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you for not remembering that Connie went missing, because I certainly haven't thought about it since it happened. Outside of this story, Daryl is being put to the test by helping the Reapers hunt down Maggie's group, with this particular Reaper called Carver still very suspicious of him. He's a smart boy, this one. There's a cool interrogation scene where Daryl is ordered to do the torturing, and the guy being tortured happens to know who Daryl is, but is playing along with Daryl's cues to pretend they don't know each other. Gabriel, Stephanie and the other radio rebels are on walker clear-out duty for their community service punishment. It's not all that interesting, just thought I'd follow up to show what happened to them. There's a really cringe part where the mayor's spoilt brat son and his girlfriend are on a date, but then some walkers approach and Eugene has to step in to save them.
What the hell was that about? You just disrupted our date.
We just saved your life.
We have private security for that.
Well, there's no reason to be so rude, Hoss.
Hoss?
I say cringe because this is such a forced conflict. It's common sense for this guy to be aware of how dangerous walkers are, and that what Eugene did was a good thing, it saved their lives. So it makes no sense why he would be angry with him. Also, we get this Scooby-Doo-ass moment, where Stephanie's trying to get their attention as another walker approaches. But Eugene's all like, nah, wait, hold on, I've got to finish speaking before I turn around.
Eugene, who the hell do you think that you are?
I think I'm talking to someone who's being
Eugene.
extremely rude right now. Now, just hold your horses 1 second.
You've no doubt seen this trope a million times before. And then to throw another trope into the mix, Eugene gets in trouble because he's not given a chance to explain what happened.
Yes, but...
What the hell are you thinking? Don't you know who that is?
Oh, please, just kill me now in Minecraft. Pope is losing patience with the lack of results in finding Maggie's gang, and for some reason, he's letting Leah talk to him as if they're equals. Kinda lowers his level of intimidation, doesn't it? Also, I know I praised his acting before, but listen to how all over the place his accent is here.
Your brothers are dead! Are you not ashamed? Or do you think this is acceptable? Take your boy over there and go and find my goddamn enemies!
Maggie and the gang move forward using the Whisperer's method of disguise to form a new plan that we're soon to see. The Reapers spot a herd of walkers behaving strangely, but Daryl says he's seen this before and it's not strange, so stop asking questions. It's definitely not Maggie. Don't go looking for Maggie in there. Pope sends out a Reaper to draw the herd away, but he gets taken out by Negan. Pretty cool to see the gang using the Whisperer's tactics to their advantage. Pope isn't sweating the situation too much, because he's got landmines surrounding the perimeter. Maggie isn't sweating the situation either, because her plot armor protects her as she makes her way to the fence. Daryl takes out a guard to allow Gabe and Maggie inside. Pope gives the command to ready a weapon called a huacha. And yes, I did have to Google this word. I thought he had a tickle in his nose and was about to sneeze.
Ready to watch.
But it turns out a huacha is an ancient Asian weapon where a bunch of deadly fireworks get launched on the enemy. Sensing that things are about to get ugly, Daryl confesses the truth to Leah, and while she is hurt by his lie, she also still cares about him and decides not to tell Pope. Pope then goes nuclear mode, saying fire the huacha, even if it kills his own men. At this point, Leah has reached her breaking point, and so she shanks him dead. Kinda sucks that Pope wasn't around longer. He wasn't a bad villain. Then Leah decides to turn on Daryl, because she considers the Reapers her people, and now that they're clear of the area, she can be the one to avenge her fallen comrades by launching the huacha. More like, watch out, there's a CGI rocket flying at the screen. Maggie and her group are fighting the Reapers inside the complex, and I really enjoyed this scene, because it actually felt like a good challenge for the gang, where even though Carver is outnumbered here, he's a much better fighter and lands some good blows. Then Negan comes along with a fistful of sand and a bell.
Well, ding ding.
Daryl stops Maggie killing him, saying they may need to use him as a hostage to get out of here alive. And he was right. Leah thinks she has the advantage because she has a sniper, but little does she know the sniper's been replaced by Gabriel.
Jensen, what the hell?
No Jensen here.
Call me Gabriel.
Gabriel just keeps hitting these W moments. They agree to a deal where the Reapers get to walk away apart from Carver. But then Elijah says, hey, that's not very fair. They killed my sister and some other people, I guess. So Maggie, being the protective den mother, takes them out when their back is turned, with Leah managing to flee the area. She takes out Carver too. Before they leave, she checks out this random building and sees that Alden is now a walker. Oh, that's it I guess. He's dead now. Yeah, he was killed off screen. Supposedly, he died while fighting the Reapers. But for me, he was just another middle-of-the-road character. And clearly, the show felt this way too. Back in Alexandria, they've been dealing with a crazy storm for the past 2 episodes. I didn't mention it because no one dies, and the storm doesn't really have any long-lasting consequences. When the storm passes, they're approached by the governor of the Commonwealth. He offers them 2 choices of setting up a trade deal or being inducted into the Commonwealth as a citizen. We flash forward 6 months and see that Daryl has become a Commonwealth soldier, and he tells Maggie and the Hilltop they have to let the Commonwealth guards inside. Or something. I don't know. I'm sorry guys, I'm trying really hard to care about this stuff. But when it comes to the Commonwealth people and whatever they're doing, it's a real struggle. Like the video if you too found it a struggle. And if you disagree with me, like the video anyway. Because I desperately need the motivation to finish this series. This opening made me laugh so much. Daryl, RJ and Judith are walking through this Walker-filled house. But not actually, because it's a fairground haunted house.
Oh man, that's enough. Okay man, no problem.
Why? Why would you build this? Look, I love Halloween, but if I was living in the world of The Walking Dead, the last thing I'd want to see in my amusement park to escape the real world is a house full of zombies. You've got to make it ghosts or werewolves or something otherworldly. Why on earth would you want to remind everyone, especially children, of the horrors that actually exist in your world? So yeah, it's Halloween time in the Commonwealth. And because I'm such a big sucker for Halloween stuff, I find myself having a really good time with this part of the episode, in the most superficial way possible. I want a slice of that spiderweb cake so bad, to the point where it's distracting me from the plot of this episode. We see the mayor of the Commonwealth giving out prizes for costumes.
And first place goes to, dressed as our very own Mercer, Celeste!
Celeste!
You can immediately tell she's bad news. She just looks evil, doesn't she? I don't wish to be mean to the actor, but she fits an evil-looking person role too well. We see that Kelly and Connie have been given jobs in journalism, producing content for the local paper. This is important to know for future events, I guess. The next thing we see answers my question on how they're managing to house all these people, and it turns out most of their citizens don't live in spacious homes. They're in these cruddy looking apartment buildings.
How's the place? Getting you better?
Hell no. No, I think this place is literally made out of paper. You sleeping?
Nah. No.
Random note, but I love the symmetry of this shot. There's a nice moment where Ezekiel lets go of Shiva's collar, as he sees now that he can take pleasure in watching a family be happy. Wait, does that make sense?
Your dad saved this from Hilltop when it burned because he knew how precious it was to me. But there's something actually more precious, and that is your family.
He gives Shiva's collar to Jerry's kid. Why on earth would a kid want a tiger's collar? Some kids want a PlayStation for Christmas, and some kids want a manky old cat collar. This episode is low down on the IMDb ranking list, and yeah, it's kinda stinky. It's focused on Eugene's budding love story with Stephanie, but right after he confesses his love to her, she mysteriously goes missing.
I love you.
And the whole episode turns into this conspiracy crime drama.
There's lights on at odd hours when they're ostensibly closed, and while people go in and out with a fair degree of regularity, it's usually just the same 4 people over and over.
There's a bit that really makes me laugh when he knocks on her door, and the perspective shot makes it look like he's got a really big hand. I'm such a nerd, what's wrong with me? Eugene is near breaking point by the end of his sleuthing, and when we get the big reveal that Stephanie wasn't missing, she was being hidden from him, he goes into full meltdown mode.
You thought I was an easy mark, the most trusted of the police, so you split off my friends one at a time, thinking I'd break, but I didn't break. You certainly got your money's worth there. I actually fell for that one twice.
So basically, it turns out Stephanie was actually given the task of luring in his group to the Commonwealth. But it actually gets a bit more complicated than that, because it turns out at first he was actually talking to a genuine person, and this mysterious new woman actually still likes him. It's the nerdy girl we saw next to the ice cream van earlier, and her name is Max. Max found some old scraps and made a radio with it, and that's how she got in touch with Eugene. But then her brother, the Orange Power Ranger called Mercer, discovers the radio and demands that they hide it from the governor. But obviously the governor did find out, and that's how we've wound up here. By the way, I've been calling both of these people on screen now Governor, and just to clarify, Hornsby is the Deputy Governor, and Pamela Milton is the actual Governor. Boring. Understandably, Eugene is slow to trust this new woman claiming to be the OG radio lady, but then they both start nerding out over this sci-fi novel, and suddenly his trust issues disappear.
You should make the twin scientists ramp up the stakes on the nuclear threat.
That is exactly what I did.
Ezekiel receives life-saving news that he's been moved up to the top of the waiting list for his surgery, and then it turns out his bumping up the list was Carol's doing.
My debt was wiped out.
Hornsby owed me a favor.
Why would you do that?
Because I don't want you to die?
The last part you mentioned is Governor Hornsby growing frustrated that Maggie refuses to set up a deal with them and just wants to remain as an independent town. She's the final stubborn holdout, for Hornsby having the monopoly on the surrounding communities. We meet another new settlement in this episode, a place called Riverbend. Sounds like a location in Lord of the Rings. And oh wow, how refreshing, this group are kind of unhinged. Are there any nice people left in the world? They talk with their leader to establish trade, but then the Commonwealth guy turns on them. And it's revealed that they actually came here to take them out, and also to find out if these are the same guys that attacked their gun supply courier. Gabe and Aaron don't agree with all this violence, and it causes them to fall out of favour with the Commonwealth higher-ups. Some mystery person then takes out the guards, allowing Gabe and Aaron to survive. This mystery person was Negan and his new wife Annie, who happened to be residents of the Riverbend. The Commonwealth guards sweep the building to find the traitors, and also to find their missing weapons. When no one comes forward out of hiding, he starts chucking people off the roof. And so his search continues in the next episode. Maggie receives word of what was going on, so she's come along to help. And little did she know that Herschel snuck into their convoy and was found by a Commonwealth guard. Negan says he will look after him for a while, although Herschel is now old enough to understand exactly who Negan is and what he did to his daddy before he was even born.
Look, kid,
My mom told me a bad man killed my dad. It was you, wasn't it?
Negan agrees that he deserves to die, but now is not the best time to pull the trigger, because doing so would alert the guards to their location. Doesn't matter too much though, because they soon get the upper hand and take out the guards, leaving only the lead menace to deal with. He tries to reason with the gang, but rightfully they shoot him down off the roof. Shouldn't these walkers already be moving at this point? Seems convenient timing that they waited until this guy hit the floor. In the end, it turns out Leah was the one who took the guns. Do we care about this detail? I feel like we should. This seems kind of important. But I guess we'll see if this reveal leads anywhere. The other plotline was far more interesting to me. Governor Milton's spoiled son and his Lindy Hop looking ass girlfriend. Seriously, why do these two dress like extras from the film Grease? They're in the police station talking about how brave he is when dealing with walkers, and Daryl mocks him for it.
Dixon's seen it.
Seen what?
How I handle myself with the rotters. Come on.
Oh, yeah. It's good stuff.
As punishment for this mockery, he orders them to go get some money that's stashed away in a nearby house. And if they refuse this order, he has enough influence to make their lives miserable.
Threaten our kids one more time, and I will. Good. Hey, who said anything about hurting kids? That I can make their life easier.
Or you can make them both orphans. It's your call.
The house is still running on electricity from a solar panel, and when they flip the switch on, it triggers the security system. And so they scramble to silence the alarm while Daryl stashes the money. They also find this woman trapped inside the room, and they do try to save her, but she gets nibbled on the way out. Mercer caught wind of what was happening and came along to save the day. And it turns out that he's actually a good dude, and is now starting to realise the level of corruption in the Commonwealth. Hornsby is on scene questioning what happened to his guards, but even when Daryl steps in to defend his friends, Hornsby isn't satisfied that he's been told the truth, and says the next place he's going to start asking questions is the Hilltop. Ooh, I bet the Hilltop are shaking in their boots. We should be so scared of this well-dressed, feeble-looking man. At the Hilltop, he suspects Maggie is pretending that her car won't start, and that perhaps this supposedly broken down car was the one that was used to steal his guns. But then he tries starting the car and, uh-oh, don't you look silly. He then tries weaseling his way into getting the truth out of Herschel, which upsets the Hilltop to the point where even Daryl says, look, enough is enough. Let's just go home before something stupid goes down. Outside of that, there's only a couple of interesting things that happen. One of those things being that Princess and Mercer are now an item. I don't know, they're both kind of oddballs in this community, so they're not the most unlikely pairing. Although he's breaking the rule of never stick your dick in crazy. Mercer is feeling pressure to do the right thing, witnessing all this corruption. He has the position to stand up and fight against it, and he certainly has the physical capability. God damn, man. But he knows too well the cost of going against the system, and he doesn't know if he has the courage. The episode ends with Hornsby finding Leah, and instead of killing her for stealing his weapons, he proposes they become friends.
Talk fast.
My name is Lance Hornsby, and I'm here to offer you a job.
Quite a good episode, as it should be for being episode bloody 16. You know, the episode number where most of the seasons had the wisdom to close the chapter. Daryl is still leading the mission on locating the missing weapons, but they grow suspicious of what's coming next, as the Commonwealth guards receive new commands over the radio.
Hornsby's checking in on us. We need to watch our backs. Yeah.
They realise it's a setup and they stand off against the guards. And ultimately they win because they're the goodies and not the baddies. Hornsby radios to check their status, and Daryl's all like, surprise, mother lover. Hornsby has arranged with Leah to kill Maggie, which of course she's glad to agree to for what Maggie did to her people. She successfully captures Maggie and holds her in a cabin for Hornsby, but then Maggie gets her hands slightly untied and launches at her for a pretty fun to watch and equally matched girl fight. Leah almost picks up the W, but then she gets shot in the back by none other than her ex-lover Daryl. He then fires at Hornsby, but unfortunately just nicks his cheek. Working to bring down the Commonwealth from within, Max and the journalist crew dig up all the dirt they can, but it might be a bit too late as they have overtaken the Hilltop and Oceanside. With Hornsby hot on their trail, they come up with a plan where Negan will sneak into the Commonwealth, being one of the only people left in their gang that's unknown to them. But then some of the other gangs sneak in anyway. So that whole plan was kind of needless. Before this, however, we get a decent sequence of events where Daryl has a shootout with the Commonwealth guards, and he yet again lands a non-lethal shot on Hornsby. Oh boy, do I enjoy watching this guy suffer. Then, while chasing Negan, 2 more guards get sideswiped by Daryl. In the Commonwealth, things are going a little crazy, with the town in protest over the actions of Pamela Milton's spoilt son. Although now, he's living in the sewers where he belongs. So he's no longer living the spoilt life, and we can give him his name back. It's Sebastian. With great convenient timing, they send out the alert that a walker herd is approaching the town, and so they have no choice but to call lockdown.
Lockdown has been instituted by order of Governor Pamela Milton. Return to your homes immediately.
Yeah, that's a bit sus, isn't it? The town are still feeling pissy though, and they break curfew to attend a memorial, and the heat gets turned up with people demanding that Sebastian comes out of hiding. The guards set off smoke grenades to disperse the crowd, but this controlling measure won't be enough to put out their fire. The episode ends with Hornsby holding a gun to Aaron, but then they hold guns to his guards, and then Daryl holds up a knife to Hornsby, and then Dog comes in and holds a gun to Pamela Milton's cat. And that's where the episode ends. As these episodes draw closer to the finale, the characters seem to be dropping more F-bombs and S-bombs.
Choosing this piece of shit?
If I was, you'd already be down.
Do what you fucking gotta do.
Up until this point, the episodes available on Disney Plus have been fairly tame, but now it seems like they're dropping an F-bomb every episode. To me, this seems like an attempt to make the episodes more edgy so that people will want to watch it. Which, if true, is kinda stupid, considering that the only people watching are already heavily invested in finishing. Having said that, the intro to this episode actually slaps, or rather stabs.
Don't worry. You'll live.
Even though Pamela is part of the corruption, Hornsby has gone too far with his antics, and therefore needs to be publicly punished so Pamela can save face. The next step in Pamela's plan is for Sebastian to show the Commonwealth that he's a changed man. Max and Eugene aim to stop that happening, however, and so Max gets him on tape, revealing the truth about how the rich are able to stay rich as long as the poor stay poor.
The desperate need to believe that the old American dream is still real.
The Commonwealth folk are enjoying a wrestling match, and for a second I had to question what show I was even watching. This is so far from The Walking Dead, it's absurd. When the match is finished, Sebastian takes the stage to perform his fake YouTuber apology video.
All aboard the toxic gossip train.
And when he asks for the tape of his grandfather's wise words to be played, Eugene instead plays the tape of truth.
The reality is that the poor stay poor so that the rich can do whatever the hell we want.
Chaos breaks out in the Commonwealth, and for reasons that don't matter, someone brought some walkers into the town square, and this once peaceful utopia has fully transformed into hell, and I love it. Sebastian pushes a walker onto Max, but then Eugene pushes it back onto Sebastian, and everyone just stands around watching him get eaten. This moment, combined with the fall of the Commonwealth, is just the best payoff to this season. Oh, and also, Annie's pregnant with Negan's kid.
I don't care.
Yeah, shit, I don't care either.
They climb now? They climb now. Please watch until the end. We've got new type of walkers that know how to climb and use tools. Just like they did in the first episode and then never again for some stupid reason. Imagine how much more intense this show would have been if they kept on going with this type of walker. This episode is okay, but we can skip past most of it, because it's mostly about Eugene being on the run for indirectly killing Sebastian. In the end, he gets caught and sits in jail, awaiting whatever punishment they have in store for him. Pamela learns that Hornsby was the one behind the walkers getting in, and so she gives him the strange and very grim punishment of feeding Sebastian a fresh corpse to keep him alive, or unalive, or you get the idea. The part with the climbing walkers is Aaron and a few others en route to Oceanside, and when their carts get stuck in the mud, they have to stop in this cool looking medieval funfair place. Jerry suggests this could be Kingdom 2.0, which would be lovely, but it's a bit too late for that, my guy. When night falls, the place gets absolutely swarmed by walkers, some of which are this new climbing variant.
Dude!
How the hell did a walker do that?
Again, it's a little too late for that. You've had 10.5 seasons to do this. The last part to mention is so damn funny it's almost painful. Eugene is told he's got to stay hidden from the guards, but he wants nothing more than to go looking for Max. And when Daryl stands in his way, he does this.
You'd be wise to step aside, Hoss. No need for this to get ugly.
Fuck off, Eugene, you melon. You ain't doing shit against Daryl. Ultimately, Eugene knows this is a stupid idea, so he sits his stupid intelligent ass down. Pamela declares the Virginia crew as enemies of the state, as we can see with Carol being chased by some goons and Daryl grappling with some other goon, although Yumiko doesn't appear to be in any danger, maybe because of her high-ranking job in the Commonwealth. But no one cares about Yumiko, so let's forget about her for a while. While on the run, Daryl and Carol find Hornsby's prison cell absolutely caked in ketchup. That's right, YouTube, a body that's been ripped apart just contains a whole lot of pixelated ketchup.
Yum yum, Sebby want ketchy.
Hornsby says he can get them to their friends if they spare his life, but they need to be quick because his ankle monitor will set off the alarm when he leaves the room. Are these guys bloody stormtroopers? How do you miss your target like this? They go on a long-ass hunt to the place where everyone supposedly is, getting into all sorts of trouble with walkers in the dark and such, and in the end they grow tired of Hornsby's promises and tell him to run while he still can, but then he tries turning on them and gets an arrow in the neck. Bye bye Hornsby. You were at most interesting at times. So, where is everyone else? Well, they're on a bus being taken to a destination unknown, injected with some kind of knockout serum so they can have a relaxing journey. I am really feeling the exhaustion of these extra episodes. This has been the hardest video to make because of how stretched out they've made these last 2 seasons. But we are close to the end, gang. I promise you're going to want to stick around for the special ending I've prepared. So, Outpost 22, what's this one all about? Well, it's about some people from the gang being forced to work as railroad maintenance, while the others are doing what they can to rescue them, and to also try and take back Alexandria, which the Commonwealth has overtaken and turned into Outpost 22. There's a couple of okay parts, I suppose, and one of them is Maggie being distressed when she encounters a Walker kid, further worrying her about the fate of Herschel, who's currently being held captive by the Commonwealth. The other okay part is Gabriel returning to his priestly duties and granting a dying enemy his last wish to be prayed for.
Can you give us a minute?
Aside from taking out a few guards, not much progress is made here. Eugene is standing trial and Yumiko says they need to win over the community. But didn't they just hear Sebastian disrespecting the community on the secret tape? And then they all stood around while Sebastian was being eaten. Seems to me like the community wanted him dead at that point. But oh no, not now. We forgot all about that. Eugene's a bad guy now. Pamela makes the bold claim that the tape was fake, and we can just skip forward here. Right to the part where Eugene gives an emotional speech, but is still found guilty anyway, because this court is corrupt. There's a new big bad boss to deal with called the Warden. He decides the fate of the lower class workers. Well, at this point I suppose they're more slaves than workers. He's aware that outside people are trying to shut down their operation, and enlists Negan to be an informant, against his will that is, threatening to kill his wife if he doesn't comply. He decides to sacrifice himself, pretending that he's in charge of the rebellion, but then the Warden puts Annie on the firing line as punishment for Negan trying to be a martyr.
Take me! Take me! You will feel this punishment!
Negan pleads with one of the guards that he knows has a family, and the guard is all like, yeah, you're right, this situation is messed up, and so he turns on the Warden. When he tries taking Kelly hostage, Daryl sneaks in from behind to stop him. Before he dies, Rosita demands to know where her daughter is, but knowing that he's a dead man anyway, he refuses to say.
Where the hell is she?
You will lose everything.
Eugene fears the worst as he's taken back to his cell, but then Mercer says, nah, you're with me now, and it's time to F stuff up. Mercer reunites Max and Eugene and tells them that he plans to rally some troops and make a move on taking out Pamela, and then tells Eugene to do what he does best by cowering away while everyone else deals with it. Although he does manage to take out one of the guards when they come searching for him. En route to the Commonwealth, some of the gang are in a train reviewing their plans to storm the gates. And I wanted to highlight this conversation between Ezekiel and Negan, because it's such a rare occurrence, and also Negan asks how he can remain so positive in these times.
I'm not even supposed to be here, man. The dead came for me, yet I smile. Cancer, yet I smile.
A team of guards are herding a ton of walkers towards the Commonwealth, and little do they know that some of our gang have blended into the crowd. Well, I say blend in, but they stand out like crazy. The guards' blindness would explain their terrible aim. They try to regroup inside this RV, but struggle to get everyone inside as the crowd pushes on. Lydia holds on to Elijah for dear life because they're a couple now, and she gets her arm bitten.
I'm sorry.
Because of the walker variant that can climb, the guard atop the wall gets attacked, and he accidentally knocks the switch, opening the gates. So yeah, the Commonwealth is Daffy Ducked. Pamela orders one of her top guards to divert their resources to protecting the rich part of town, and something classist political stuff. On their way through the town hall, the gang get ambushed, and we see Pamela getting her hands dirty by entering the fight. As we need even more reason to justify her death when it inevitably happens, she accidentally shoots Judith.
No! Wake up, Judith.
Everyone of importance makes it out alive, with Daryl carrying Judith in his arms. We'll see how she's doing in the very last episode. If you've committed this far, it would mean the world to me if you dropped a like on the video. Let's finish The Walking Dead. The gang try to take shelter in a nearby hospital, but Luke gets bitten while trying to rescue someone. Oh no. I know I'm going to get comments for not remembering who this woman is. Let's just focus back on Luke. His death scene was one of the rare times when the characters around him seem to show real emotion. Their grief looks and sounds real.
I love you. We love you so much.
I really can't show much of this because everyone's just swimming in pixelated ketchup, but damn man, the heartbreak is real. R.I.P. Luke, you were one of the good ones. Daryl gives a blood transfusion to save Judith, and that was a touching moment, but let's watch something funny to lighten the mood. So, Mercer's in jail for disobeying orders, and then Princess comes along to save him.
Baby, get back and cover your head.
I'm clear!
Jesus Christ, Princess. The word clear barely left his lips and you just blew a hole in the wall.
I'm clear!
Alright, we've had our fun. Back to the dark stuff. Rosita finds the kids' nursery and the place is just an ugly mess. There's bodies and ketchup everywhere, and the walkers are having a lovely feast. I hear baby back ribs are on the menu. Luckily, someone upturned the crib where Coco was, and Rosita gets her out alive because, yeah, I don't think the show would ever go that dark. The show does go to an unexpected level of silly, however, so they somehow manage to climb a drain pipe on the side of the building, which in real life is harder than it looks, especially if you're a chubby dude like Eugene. I very much doubt this pipe would hold their combined weight. Then, Rosita falls into the crowd of walkers and this happens. I'm sorry, but no. In the real world, she died here. She did at least get bitten though, and I know that's not something to be happy about. I just appreciate the realness. She decides to hide her impending death from the gang, but Eugene sees through her poker face.
Okay, I don't want them to know yet. I need you to put your shit together, okay?
I can't.
You can.
So Rosita's going to be dying this episode, but not before we close off the Commonwealth chapter. The lower class are demanding to be let in the gates, but Pamela refuses. Everyone, including her most loyal guards, turn on her, and she gets arrested and slung in a cell. Now, I was fully expecting her to be killed, so I take back what I said earlier, as we need even more reason to justify her death when it inevitably happens. They open the gates just in time to let the citizens in and keep the walkers out. And then they set up a ton of explosives, so that when the walkers do eventually get in, that was amazing. They enjoy a delightful celebration feast, with the Fleetwood Mac song Landslide playing, which is just not fair because that song hits me in my core. This bittersweet feeling turns to pure sadness as we see everyone saying goodbye to Rosita. Watching Rosita have her final moments with her daughter is just, oh man, it's super rough.
We'll see you again someday.
Now, we can't close the show without seeing Rick Grimes one last time, can we? Well, it certainly feels like we do. We do get to see that he's alive at least, as he looks up at this helicopter. But what's really missing from this ending is a heartwarming reunion with his kids. Bring it full circle, you know? But yep, that's it. The episode ends instead with a shot of his kids thinking about their future.
We're the ones who live.
I can't believe we finally arrived at the end of our journey. Even though the work was on my shoulders, I feel like you guys have supported me in forming a community around these videos. And regardless of when you discovered me, I feel honoured that you're here now. The Walking Dead is such a unique experience, and I feel good knowing that this will likely be the only time I ever watch it start to finish. For its many highs are met with many lows, and yet I smile. It's time to close the book on this project, and I feel the best way of doing that is by enjoying a montage of the show's emotional highlights, which at its core is a lesson on remembering those who are most important to you when times are tough and the world feels like it's falling apart. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sty, the artist who made this song for the montage. Take us home, Sty.
Life has changed, overthrown. The city's falling, overgrown. Our hearts are frail and our minds low. Stimulation. Very rare we look to the sky. Wish for a jet plane to fly right by. Our hearts are frail and our minds fear separation. Family is all we have. The ones we love and live and laugh in a world of pain. What's wrong with jubilation? When the world falls down and the dead are rising, we're scattered like the wind on the horizon. I'm scared to die in a world of death, so I'll ask you with my last breath. Tell me what I have to do to save you. Chop off my arms if it'll make you safe. You make my jaw a distant memory.